Untitled Moves, and today we're talking about concentration. And so just before we get into everything, I think it's so important, as the heading explains today, that when we see concentration problems, they are not a problem in themselves, but often a symptom as to what else might be going on. So important for us to ask, why is this child battling to concentrate? And so before we even get into that, let's have a look at concentration. And so we see here a quote: "The best advice I ever came across on the subject of concentration is, wherever you are, be there." And that obviously said by Jim Rohn. And so what is it to be focused and to concentrate? It is to be present in the moment, spending one's energy on the task at hand. And so my question before we head into this whole thing is to ask us as adults, well, how much time do you spend somewhere else in your head? So often we are busy either planning for the future or reliving the past. And so when it comes to our conscious mind, it's also really important to see that when we are thinking and using our cognitive mind, we are also running on autopilot. Our subconscious has to step in, because we are not actually present with what is actually going on around us, but we are spending our time in our head space. And so the subconscious, as I say, takes over and runs programs and movement patterns that it knows well. Also, we want to ask, how often are we truly available in the moment as an adult? And so how often are we really concentrating? And I'm thinking today of us driving along. So often when you watch people drive, and perhaps you've caught yourself doing it as well, you know, you've got the music going, you've got your mind somewhere else. You might be talking to the person sitting next to you. You might be planning the day. You might be rethinking a conversation that you've had. And you're not really paying full attention to everything that you actually are presently doing. And so you yourself are not concentrating. And so let's just have a little bit of compassion as we look at our youngsters, and if they can concentrate, knowing that we as parents and adults don't always do that very well ourselves. As we consider all these things, it's really also important to understand what is age appropriate. And so childhood specialists actually suggest that a child should be able to concentrate between 2 and 3 minutes of their age. And so often it is our expectations that aren't in line with what is actually age appropriate for children. And as I've worked on many courses and helping out of teachers, I've come across many daily plans that are not in line with this. And so we are expecting children to sit longer. We're expecting right brain children to learn in a left brain manner. We are expecting kinesthetic children to learn through seeing and hearing. And we are then labeling them as children with concentration problems, when actually we should go back to our drawing board and consider if what we are asking of them is genuinely something that they're able to do. So talking concentration, we can't escape the idea that, as I say, this ADD, ADHD comes to mind. And so just got some of these symptoms of ADD, ADHD off a pamphlet. And I'd like to go through them with you today, and we can challenge some of these to see what is the true cause of these symptoms. So the first one we see is an inability to concentrate, especially when the subject doesn't interest them. And so straight away I can ask you, if you're doing the washing or if you are, I don't know, doing the ironing, how focused are you in that moment? Or do you allow your mind also to wander to more exciting things? And so yes, of course it makes sense that when we're not interested in something, our focus is not going to be as good as when we are truly engaged in things that we are excited to learn about and do. So hyperactivity refers to children who constantly are moving without purpose. These children seem to squirm in their seat and rock and jiggle. Jiggle their legs, can't sit still, fiddling with hands and pacing. As I read that out, we will go into this, but thinking of our kinesthetic learner. Get easily distracted, impulsive, speak without thinking of consequences, excitable or unpredictable and can suffer from mood swings, tend to need instant gratification, whine or cry easily, and can be aggressive or destructive. and tend to suffer from low self-esteem. They get frustrated easily, and as I read that, I'm thinking of some of the reflexes we're going to have a look at just now. Often labelled as emotionally immature and can be 2 to 3 years behind with regards to emotional development. Are very sensitive to sensory stimuli and can be sensory defensive. And when we hear the word sensory and sensory processing or sensitive to sensory stimuli, we actually need to start asking about reflexes, okay? So the child might battle with sleep and can even fear sleep, might have difficulty falling asleep, suffering from nightmares. They might be restless sleepers and might sleepwalk. As we talk about that, we talk also about the neurotransmitters such as delta and theta not coming in when they should. And many children with learning disabilities actually have these higher levels of delta and theta present during the day. And these are in actual fact the brain waves needed for sleep. Battle to change direction towards a new activity, and even when they're doing something that is potentially life-threatening. Symptoms continued. So battle to discipline these children. It seems that punishment, now I do want to ask, do we punish or discipline? Because they have two very different meanings. So just look at this word and consider what it might mean for you. But it seems that punishment only creates more frustration, leading to more temper tantrums and rebelliousness. If it is punishment, I could imagine that with all children, not just children battling with concentration. They are disorganized, not often seeing the mess. They battle with regards to structuring their work, working through tasks and following through to completion. Very much in line with the right brain kid. We're going to get into that. They often battle with coordination and gross motor muscles and are seemingly clumsy. Reflexes. They may trip when they walk or have difficulty playing sports. Okay? Their fine motor skills are often poor. Reflexes. They have poor eye-hand coordination. They might have difficulty with buttons, tying and fastening shoes, as well as writing and drawing. And again, I'm going to say the word reflexes coming up here. They may have speech difficulties such as stammering, stuttering, pronunciation of words. We see anxiety, don't we? And anxiety triggers our reflexes. So we're seeing anxiety also coming into the mix here. They may be labelled as dyslexic, and we're going to get into that just now as well. Problems that affect academics such as auditory, visual, perceptual, processing problems, poor comprehension, spatial disturbances, and difficulty with reasoning as well as short-term, long-term memory problems. So yes, much of our work helps with a lot of these things that we're seeing coming up here. So we continue. Social clumsiness. They battle to make friends and keep them. We'll get into all of this, I'm guessing, just now. About 80% of these children are frequently thirsty, and in the course that we were running last week, I was reminded again that when we drink water, the body recognizes it and knows it as the medium in which all things happen, and this is why we are made up of so much water. But when I start mixing it with my coffee, with my Oros, with all these flavorants, it apparently is seen as a food as it enters the body, and so again a different process begins. So we also see that these children might have allergies and suffer from asthma, eczema, and even sinusitis, tonsillitis, ear infections. A lot of the questions we start asking before we profile kids, is has your child battled with ear infections, tonsillitis, and sinusitis? We also see high palates, so within the mouth, little toes and fingers, and also they tend to curve inwards. Again, as you know how we move and walk and use our body, so the body also follows suit. And so yes, movement absolutely important, especially if you want to see more about the palate and the mouth. We look at mewing and mouth breathing and what they can actually do to facial features if it's something you want to take a look at. And yes, can suffer from bedwetting and soiling. Another reflex that's out. So I present to you my table, and I've divided up things that come under a lack of concentration, because again we need to be reminded that when we see children who can't focus and can't concentrate, it is a symptom. Perhaps a symptom of what we like to label as ADD, ADHD. However, it is also a symptom to anxiety, to sensory issues, to active reflexes, to a learning style, to visual perceptual issues, and we're going to see that dyslexic one coming up here and how that relates to us all, to lifestyle and diet, and to other conditions we need to consider. So as we start with ADD, ADHD, it's all our favorite. It's the one we want to squish everybody under that column. Let's take what we're seeing there, let's read through these symptoms, and then let's pull it across and see and ask if they're not actually falling under a different category here. So it doesn't pay attention to detail or makes careless mistakes, doesn't stay on task, doesn't listen, doesn't follow instructions or finish schoolwork or chores, trouble organizing tasks or activities, avoids or dislikes doing things and takes effort to concentrate. Can you imagine a child avoiding or disliking something that takes effort? I'm sure we aren't like that, hey? Not us. Loses things, easily distracted, forgetful. We look at ADHD now, the hyperactive coming in, fidgets or squirms a lot, gets up from their seat a lot, runs or climbs at inappropriate times, has trouble playing quietly. I just smile. Always on the go, as if driven by a motor, talks excessively, blurts out the answer before the question has even been completed, trouble waiting their turn, interrupts others. Now hold those as we go across. And so let's see how anxiety presents in a person. Get caught up in their thoughts, cannot pay attention to what is going on around them. Children who feel anxious might seem to daydream or unable to think straight and organize themselves. Stress profile, and I just did a live this morning about these stress profiles and how these children, once they go into under stress, they go into what is called a learning profile, which is limited thinking. And depending on what that is, they might not be able to read, hear, speak or write, or even take the next step, and they wouldn't be able to organize their thoughts. And so anxiety triggers this, and this is when we see children not paying attention. May seem impulsive, and this is anxiety, may seem impulsive, very reactive. Of course, when we're stressed, we tend to trigger our learning profile, and our reflexes are triggered, and we react because we're trying to get out of danger. May develop OCD and tics, may lash out and make careless mistakes, memory issues, avoidance, procrastination, rapid heartbeat, because this again was one of the things I said happens to children who have ADD, ADHD, and performance anxiety also being one, that this child is fine and then all of a sudden can't when they're put on the spot. Sensory issues, no indoor voice, constantly moving, we've heard this one, also doesn't recognize personal space. Auditory processing problems, so now it looks like they're not listening and then they can't recall, and then we say they didn't concentrate, may be mistaken as ADHD. ADHD children often have also sensory issues. Other reasons we see that we've also got children with other reasons why they have sensory issues. They could be on the autistic spectrum. They could be battling even with depression. Battles to filter and process stimuli, and battles with anxiety can make seemingly careless mistakes. So active reflexes, and again when we see sensory issues, we know straight away we need to do reflex work. So craves attention deficit. They are deficit of attention. So this person with active reflexes also craves attention, could have aggressive behavior, learning difficulties, auditory perceptual difficulties, poor time sense, poor organization skills, fatigues easily, difficulty to sit still and concentrate, immature emotional system. This is one of them on the section before that we went through. Weak concentration, moves between cycles of hyperactivity and extreme fatigue, attention difficulties, inner looks like ADD. Okay, fidgeting, then we start seeing something that presents as ADHD. Problems with short-term memory. Okay, immature emotionally, labeled as. So these children with active reflexes are in danger of being labeled as ADD, ADHD. Prone to emotional outbursts and may be impulsive. Easily distracted, focus problems, and works slowly. Moving over again to our learning style. So what happens with our right-brained kids? Our right-brained kids are often kinesthetic learners, manual learners. So kinesthetic learners are learners who need to move in order to learn. They don't need to particularly move with the learning, so they don't have to do it necessarily hands-on. However, the one child that I profiled who was extremely kinesthetic said, when I lifted my hand like this, the teacher said. So what is that information anchored in? The seemingly purposeless movement of her moving the arm. And yet she's recalling what the teacher said because she connected it with that muscle movement. And so I have to be very careful, because if I've got a learner like this and I stop them moving, I'm going to stop them learning. The other thing, and I'm not getting it into, well, I've got a whole slide for that, and through all my courses and that, but kinesthetic learners need to move to concentrate. So it's very stressful to sit still in your class. And so they will have to move every now and then. So they are the learner who is clicking the pen, fidgeting with their leg, bumping the table. They might need to get up and walk around. And it's not that they're not focusing, they are doing this to focus. Okay, manual hands-on, so slightly different. This person actually wants to handle the stuff and pick it up and turn it around and twist it and go through the process physically. When they remember, they're going to remember seeing themselves doing it, or remember doing it within their body. Emotionally and physically expressive. So yes, right brain learners are this way because they're all about the emotion, the space, the experience. They are very much about the feeling that they had. They're not time conscious. They do not see things in an order. They see things all over the shop quite randomly. And I am having so many kids come in here who have got these labels. And when we do these profiles, they are right-brained and kinesthetic. And what does that tell me? It tells me that their learning style is not being catered for and not being appreciated. And so they'd rather have them sit still and potentially not learn than have them move and actually do what they need to intuitively in order for the information to come in. So we're talking scary stuff here. So under stress, what does this person look like, this right brain person? Now listen carefully. They lose the ability to reason well. Can you imagine this child being stressed, going their learning profile in a test, thinking even more right brain, and all of a sudden they can't reason well? All of a sudden they start acting without thinking. All of a sudden they are feeling very overwhelmed emotionally, so we're now spiraling. All of a sudden cannot express, because now I have trouble expressing. All of a sudden cannot remember the detail. All of a sudden may appear emotional and very spaced out. Can you see what's happening? As we go further, in my profiling work, we often look at personality types. We've got two personality types that can present as hyperactive. The number 7, funny enough, they say your Staffy or your pit bull is a number 7 dog. And I can tell you it looks like my Staffy has ADD, ADHD. It's a personality type. If you want to find out more about this, please, I do profiling sessions and we go into all of this. We figure this all out for each child, and you're welcome to go check that out on my website and contact me if you want more information. But the number 7 person is called the Enthusiast. They are always on to the next best thing. They've got massive FOMO. They are always scared that they are missing out. And so can you imagine, they love multitasking. If I'm always looking for the next best thing, fearful that I'm going to lose out or miss out on something. The type 5 personality is very different. However, under stress, they seem paranoid, scatterbrained, and hyperactive. So I could even have a number 5 person in my class under being stressed, presenting in a very hyperactive manner. We move over to visual perceptual skills here, and we see how dyslexia has been roped into this list here. So just read, and this is to do with foreground and background, particularly, so visual foreground and background, and what children without this skill will battle with. They'll have short attention span. They'll have concentration, organizational problems. They'll be distracted easily by irrelevant details. Even the teacher's clothes can be a distraction. Have reading as well as reading comprehension problems. Find maths and story sums difficult. Find it difficult to discern between relevant and irrelevant information. Might battle to use the dictionary, and years before the telephone directory. Will battle with categorizing, classifying, which may lead to further difficulties in maths. May lose their place when copying from the board. Okay, appear to be careless because they lose their space when reading, skip parts, leave out words and phrases, and skip lines. They may struggle to find things in the cupboard and be distracted by over-decorated walls and too many posters on classroom walls. Lifestyle we know, so there's a beautiful YouTube one if you want to go see the effects of sugar on a rat's brain, and there's the link, or if you want to type it in, and we see how food and sugar levels can also cause us not to be able to concentrate. Also, our life teaches us this. We live in a fast-paced world with internet and games and things where we're actually conditioning instant gratification. I also can have many tabs open on my computer and flicking between them, and this is what our children are doing. Other things to watch for: petit mal seizures. Children who are having petit mal seizures are not going to have a full-on seizure, but they're going to look like they blank or daydream, and you need to rule that out. Sugar levels and diabetes, autism and Asperger's, Tourette's syndrome, OCD, dyslexia. They might be low in vitamins like your iron, vitamin B, vitamin D's, low magnesium, low potassium, not enough omegas. They also might have allergies and lack sleep. And of course we went through that. Emotional issues as well. So remember that also triggers the anxiety, triggers all these things that we've spoken about. Social issues, and of course, yes, the poor child with the low EQ. So we as teachers and parents are reminded, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We can definitely make a difference. We're not allowed to diagnose, we're not allowed to speculate. We can, again, implement things and start ruling stuff out in the meantime. And that is the work that we're trying to get into the classroom. This is an extract from my course, Concentration, which is SACE approved and can be done online or in person. So if you want to know more about this course, I really put a lot into it. It's through Play, Learn, Win. You can head over to their website and check it out, Concentration. And this is the things we definitely can start doing. This is all about empowering us as parents and teachers. So yes, we might not be the doctor. We might not be the person who at the end can prescribe stuff. However, there is so much that we can do. And so here's a list of things to consider. So we can first change the child's diet. I've gone into the nth degree in that course, and we've gone through food, and we've gone through vitamins, and we've gone through what potentially they can do within the child. So as I say, if you want that, go take a look. And you'll see that it doesn't mean making the child eat a mushy peach, or that furry peach and a mushy watermelon and all these really sensory icky things. But actually by including a few foods that keep coming up, I can make sure that I've got the nutrients there that the child needs and able to feed their system. Also to up certain vitamins and probiotics. We know, we've heard so much about the brain and gut connection. Well-structured routine. Remember, children thrive with boundaries and routine because it means that they can then start mapping out what can I do and how's my actions going to lead to someone getting upset and angry and anxiety for me, and what actions do I need to take in order to prevent it. So we need to be consistent as parents. And yes, maybe it means doing a parenting course. You're welcome to contact me with that. And maybe it's about sitting down and turning this into an exercise where I can write down, how do I respond to this? What do I value most as a parent? What fight am I going to have? What things am I going to let slide? So that when these things come up, we don't get caught off guard. We're going to also make sure they've got a bedtime and a bedtime routine where they start shutting down as such. whether it be the lavender in the bath, a story time, but something that happens every day that starts showing the system we're getting ready for bed. Limiting screen time, especially as we're going too tired to bed, because it has a very stimulating effect on the body. You're going to teach them not to multitask. So our young kids are more right-brained, will multitask, but we need to start encouraging them and teaching them a life skill on ticking off things, making sure they're finished. Prepare them for change, voice things, talk about up-and-coming events. Remember, we've got a watch and a time and a calendar. That's why we can cope. I know that tomorrow I've got this big appointment at the doctor that I'm nervous about, but I can prepare myself so that in that moment I'm ready. Kids don't have access to this. They're always in the here and the now and really victims of chance and circumstance wherever mom goes, whether she's going to the bank, the licensing department or home affairs this afternoon. They've got no decision in that. And so as we speak them through things that are coming up, they are able to then regulate themselves and adapt and get themselves ready for the things coming up. Let them know that you support them. Set rules and of course establish consequences for breaking them. Tell the kids these so that they know. And then remember that we expect children to be motivated even when they dislike what they're doing. So just consider how motivated you are when you are doing a task that you don't enjoy. Just consider that. You know, we do work every day, but there's a payback for that. We get a salary. There's a motivation. Our children are going to school with not much motivation. They're not getting paid salaries. They're not getting, rewarded as such. And they're having to do many of these subjects right up until grade 10 when they're able to choose for the first time. And we expect them to be as motivated in all of them. And we punish and penalize and shout at them when they're not. And that's a little bit harsh because we don't expect the same from ourselves. And so we really need to start understanding this and talking them through these things and considering how would we then reward them for their efforts. In my course, in my profiling workshop again, we look at the love languages and the way in which each child receives and understands love, and then how we as the adult and parent can do that. So I trust this has been interesting. I trust it's opened your eyes to the fact that this is not an easy answer. There's no easy answer, but rather a space where we need to be asking far more questions rather than just settling. But also a liberating space where there is so much that we as the layperson can do. If you want to find out about our moves and the work that we do, and if you want to start learning them yourself as a teacher, as a parent, to start introducing them on a daily basis so that we can have reflexes inhibit and that we can help with anxiety, get hold of me. I love to share this work and we can have a conversation, we can chat, and I can see how it is we can help you and your situation. Take care.